Well, it's Thursday, and you know what that means. That means once again we get to review TNA Wrestling. This one features, of course, the digital media title on the line between Rhino and Steve Macklin. We also have Kushida taking on Moose, revenge for what the system did to him last week. We also see members of MK Ultra who are unhinged, who are now want to get revenge for the loss of the TNA Knockouts Tag Team titles and plenty other things as well. But we also going to reviewing ROH Ring of Honor. They have begun the commencement of the Ring of Honor World Women's Television Title Tournament. So we're now in the first rounds, but the real question is who will advance and what matches are we expecting for this one as well. I'm excited. I'm sure many of you are excited. We're also going to see some other interesting matches as well during a Ring of Honor. But first things first, we're going to be reviewing Stardom's much recent event back on 13th of February in Toyohashi, where we're going to see some interesting matches. But amongst this show, this is the home of the rookie of Sayaka Kurara. So this is her hometown in Toyohashi. So I'm sure everybody are happy to get to see her. I think many, I'm going to presume possibly her family is there as well. But what we could expect from her? Well, we'll just have to find out. And then after that, we'll cap it up in the end with some news updates. We only have some smaller ones, mostly coming from GCW for their upcoming events and other developments that we're going to be talking about as well. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel where we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews, not only about wrestling promotions here in the United States, we also do in Japan, Mexico, Europe, the UK, anywhere in the world where pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also do more news updates. If I'm unable to put it on this episode, I can put it on a separate video by itself. We also do real timing news updates to tell everybody on alert time what's going on in the world of pro wrestling. We also do new Sayaka Watch and various other things as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us. So click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool stuff on this channel as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, let's begin with our very first review. This is, of course, post Rossy Ogawa. As you know, Rossy Ogawa has been fired with Stardom. Many of us question how things are going to be with Stardom without him, since he was the one doing the bookings. Now, I haven't thought about much about it since the last one I reviewed, so let's get this one right now. And this one took place recently on the 12th of February in Toyohashi, and it was also revealed this was the hometown of Sayaka Kurara, who is one of the rookies in Stardom, who made her debut late last year. We'll see how she does. But right now, let's go in our very first match. We have Yuzuki taking on Zuzu Suzuki. Now, there's nothing significant about any storyline with this one, but this one shows, okay, let's see how a young rookie takes on a wrestler who's been wrestling at a young age. I think you can tell that both Zuzu and Yuzuki can relate because Zuzu was very much almost possibly her age or so, but um, you probably guessed that this match was going to end with Zuzu. But she applied a move I never heard of called a Dolphin Buster. It was like, wow. So it was impressive. So she picked up a good win. And then, of course, right at the end of the match, Zuzu gave her a pat in the head, and Yuzuki did not like that. So I'm sure that's going to be frustrating that she lost to someone like her. Next up, we have a three-way match. We have Lady C versus Hazuki versus Saki Kashima. Now, when it comes to these type of matches, you ask yourself, what is Kashima gonna try to do? Of course, there'll be moments she'll try to hide or let both Lady C or Hazuki outdo each other. So which is a real smart plan out of her part. I mean, I'm sure God's Eye puts up with her nonsense because she's trying desperately to be like them, but it's not. But however, that wasn't the case because it was Kashima who outsmarted Lady C with the Kishikase to pick up a win. Very frustrating, and of course, Lady C, who's so far hasn't picked up the biggest wins yet, but Saki Kashima continues to, how to say, entertain us in her own way. Next up, we have Oedo ties consisting of Raka, Starlight Kid. I'm going to say this is a pretty good warm up for them because, as you know, they need to be cohesive for their upcoming Fantastica Mania show as the only representatives for Stardom against CML's women in their promotion. But their opponents are going to be, in fact, Empress Nexus Venus, consisting of Waka Tsukiyama and Maika. Now, you probably would think in the back of your minds that Maika would probably be the one to pick up the win out of her and Waka. That's what I thought so too. But however, I've always felt this match is more like, how do I say this? Like, this is more of the part with Ruaka and Starlight Kid trying to be more cohesive for their upcoming match. And I say it did pretty well because it was, of course, Ruaka with the freezer bomb of Waka. I'm sure this is a disappointing loss for Waka, but a good momentum for Oedo Tai, in my opinion. Next up, we have God's Eye, consistent of Rana Yagami, Amisori, Mirai, and Shuri. They take on Queen's Quest, Miyu Amasaki, Azumi, Sayaka Mitani, and Utami Ayashida. Now, nothing significant about this type of match, but however, you probably would think that this match would have played some really implications. Now, as you know, Queen's Quest, in fact, Kamitani and Hayashida, they're both the goddesses of Stardom, the tag champions. Then you got Suri, Amisuri, and Mirai as the current artist champions. You would have thought that that would have been played out in their favor. No, I was thinking that when I saw this match, but no. Once again, it was Suri who put uh, Amasaki again in a sleeper role. If you guys remember, Amasaki did put herself in a challenge against Suri, and she ended up passing out after that little sleeper hold. But she's okay, nonetheless. But nonetheless, the match was pretty good. But nothing implications it played out like I thought when I first saw this match. Next up, we have the Cosmic Angels, Yuna Mizumori and Tam Nakano, taking on Sayaka Kurara versus, of course, our current high-speed champion, Mei Sira. Now, I would have assumed that this is going to be a very interesting matchup. But what I did like is there was a good moment where Kurara speared Tam Nakano. I'm like thinking, dang, that's kind of crazy. But however, that did not stop Tam Nakano not one bit. But it was the violet shooting onto Kurara to pick up the win. But in the post match, this where things got a little interesting. Of course, I mentioned this earlier. Uh, Toyohashi is the hometown of Sayaka Kurara, and she was disappointed that she lost, that she did not win. And of course, recently she's been frustrated because, as you know, I mentioned this before, many of her fellow rookies, mates, classmates are now in their own respective fashions. Yuzuki with Stars, Hanako with Empress Nexus Venus, and of course, uh, Rana Yagami with God's Eye, and she's, well, not the last, but she was like right now the current one who had no faction. But she asked Tam Nakano that she would like to join Cosmic Angels. Now, before Tam makes her decision, Yuna Mizumori decided to make things one clear. Now, it's nothing bad. You probably would have thought, oh, she's gonna put her on a diet. Nope. Yuna was saying she needs to pass her apprenticeship. So basically, it's like, okay, she's a, a part-time member of Cosmic Angels, but she needs to prove herself. I mean, Yuna Mizumori did that. She was not a full-time member, but she actually is. She actually applied apprenticeship. Somebody was yelling out that, oh, is she's going to be on a diet or something? Nope, she's not. But she's willing to accept it. So I thought it was very interesting that now they're taking a rookie. I don't think Cosmic Angels ever taken a rookie before, but it's because we know that majority of the members of Cosmic Angels are in fact outsiders, not actually bred in the Stardom system. But nonetheless, it's a good news for everybody. I think many fans are probably looking forward to it. I can't wait to see Natsupoi and Sario Inoue actually team up with Sayaka, see how they'll do with her. So that's pretty much it for that. Now let's move on with our next match. Our next match is another tag team match. We have Oedo Tai's Momo Watanabe and Natsuko Tora taking on Mai Sakurai and Julia. Now, recently, as you know, Natsuko Tora issued a challenge for the New Japan Strong Women's title, but however, no response coming from Julia. But Julia and Mai Sakurai took a page out of Oedo Tai's playbook. If you guys don't know what I'm referring to, you know perfectly well at certain times Oedo Tai likes to attack their opponents right after the bell is rung and charge right at them. Well, this time the tables were turned. But however, this match went out of control after 16 minutes and 32 seconds. Apparently, there was a brawl between both Natsuko Tora and Julia outside the ring. Ref could not contain this, but however, once the match was called off after double countout, they continued to brawl from each other. I'm sure that Julia did not want to face Natsuko Tora, but I'm sure Natsuko Tora is not going to be ignored by Julia. Now, it's not the first time they ever faced. Last time, Julia nearly tried to kill Natsuko Tora, and I'm sure Natsuko Tora hasn't forgotten. But we'll see what happens till then. Now, our main event. We have the other members of Empress Nexus Venus, Hanako, the returning Xena. Sorry, such a butterfingers. Anyway, we have the other members of Empress Nexus Venus, Hanako, Xena, and Mina Shirakawa. They take on the star members, our current New Blood tag champions, Saya Ida and Hanan, and of course, our current IWGP Women's Champion, Mayu Iwatani. I have to say, this is a pretty good match. Now, keep in mind, Hanako and Waka had issued a challenge for the tag belts before. But of course, Waka's not involved in this match, and we all know Mina issued the challenge for the IWGP Women's title. But it was Hanan, on the other hand, who picked up the win with the Hanan special onto Hanako. However, as you know, on the 17th of February, Hanan and Saida will defend the belts against Mai Sakurai and Chanyota. So we'll see what happens. But of course, Waka and Hanako, how to say, Saida and Hanan felt that they haven't done anything to impress them. They haven't earned the right to win these belts. I think I see where they're coming from. Think about it. Like, Hanako and Waka haven't been much of a cohesive team that much because we have seen Ida and Hanan have always been so cohesive for almost over a year now. And I think that plays out pretty well. But of course, Waka, who has been unable to compete, hasn't been able to obtain a future belt, she felt like she cannot let this one slip again. But we'll see what happens. But right now, Ida and Hana will be defending these belts against Sakurai and Chanyota. So we'll see what happens until then. I think that's pretty much it. So let's move on with TNA. Okay, TNA. It opened up with Jake Something versus Frankie Kazarian. Now, as you saw what happened last week, Frankie Kazarian explained about his actions for what he did right after the very first day of TNA on live broadcasting. We did. He explained himself, and Jake Something said he was someone he looked up to, and of course Frankie Kazarian told him to stop, and that's exactly what Jake Something did, and this led to this match. Now, you probably would have thought this match was going to be interesting, but what was more interesting, right behind the curtain, Eric Young was watching. I don't know what he was doing, but I'm going to presume that he is maybe plotting his revenge against them for what he did. But we'll see what happens until that time. But the match was pretty good. You would have assumed that Jake Something would have won this match because he is a much stronger dude. But however, Frankie Kazarian pinned Jake Something, but he used the Bonner rope to leverage himself. The referee did not see it, and it gave Frank Kazarian the win. But I'm sure Jake Something will not forget what he's done. So we'll see what happens until then. But Eric Young did mention that he wants to have a little one-on-one talk with him next week. So I think many of us are going to be looking forward to that. Our next match, we have Jordynne Grace versus Savannah Evans. Now, Giselle Shaw, as you know, is not happy with things not going her way. So she fired the Shawtourage, but of course, Savannah Evans told her to give her one last chance, and that's exactly what she did. But the real question does remain, was Gail Kim right? Is she better off without them? Because here's the way I see it. How many times have Savannah Evans and Jai Vidal screwed up for her? Plenty. So I think that's the case where it needs to play out. But however, Jordynne Grace was able to pick up the win when she applied the muscle buster and picked up the victory. Now, this was a non-title match. However, Giselle Shaw attacked Jordynne Grace from behind with the X sign that she used in order to cash in for the Knockouts World Title. But however, when Savannah Evans saw what Giselle Shaw did, she thought she was happy, but Giselle Shaw just whacked her with it. So I think Gail Kim was right. Maybe she doesn't need them. So this could be possibly the beginning of Giselle Shaw finally obtaining the belt that has eluded her, and that is, of course, the TNA Knockouts World Title. So we'll see what happens until then, but she will be facing her at No Surrender. Now, during an interview with Gia, she was about to interview Ash by Legend, no, by Elegance. However, her little personal assistant or whatever you call him, it just revealed that she'll be making her debut next week. I think many of us are kind of curious to see how that's going to play out. Now, last week we saw what happened. Josh Alexander won his match against Alan Angels, but out of nowhere, he was attacked out of the blue by someone from his past, and that is, of course, Simon Gotch. Now, Alan Angels wanted to hear his side of the story. So this is what he told. 5 years ago, there was a match where, of course, he and Josh Alexander were involved, and that match was led to, of course, Scott D'Amore to sign Josh Alexander. So basically, it was more like, okay, so that match was the stepping stone. But from his point of view, he felt that no one talked about him. So it's more like Josh never thanked them for what happened 5 years ago. But of course, you don't think Josh Alexander would definitely want a revenge for what transpired? Well, he did. He showed up and attacked them. So that's kind of interesting to see. So this is a feud that led back from 5 years ago, and now it's reigniting. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen, but I'm going to presume there's going to be a match for these two at No Surrender. Now, our next match, this is the 2 out of 3 series for the TNA World Tag Team titles. The Grizzled Young Veterans versus the ABC. Now, don't forget, the Grizzled Young Veterans already have a win over them, so if they need one more in order to win the TNA Tag Team titles. But however, the ABC are no fools because, of course, they know how cohesive and tactical the Grizzled Young Veterans can be. They tried everything in their power to try to block out their momentum. But it was, of course, Ace Austin with a bridge that pinned James Drake, giving them the tie. So they only have one more in order to pick up the win. Now, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't be surprised that their last match, the one that would definitely decide who would win, will take place in No Surrender. I'm sure that's going to be where it's going to happen. Now, I don't know what the Good Hand are trying to do, but they're trying to get under the skin of Chris Sabin. As you know, Mustafa Ali has issued the challenge against Chris Sabin for the X Division champion. The Good Brothers believe that some change have to happen, and that change is Chris Sabin has to lose the belt. Of course, Chris Sabin can't stand it. They're trying to get under his skin, but he knocked out someone who, well, you can say he's a bystander or whatever, but you can say he had it coming for getting in his face. Next up, we have the Digital Media Championship. We have Rhino challenging Crazy Steve. Now, Crazy Steve, as you know, he has been going crazy for what he's in since obtaining this belt. But however, Steve was very smart. He brought in the fork, but he used that as a distraction on the referee while he used his belt onto Rhino and whack him down in order to pick up the win. I'm sure Rhino will definitely get his revenge on that, but we'll see how that rolls up as well. Now, PCO has revealed that he wants Khan at No Surrender, so that's going to be an interesting dilemma. Now, we were supposed to have a match between Diener and Joe Hendry. Now, when Hendry was already in the ring, AJ Francis did a video like what we seen with Joe Hendry do with his wrestlers. However, of course, AJ Francis says, "I got you. You got served, sucker." So basically, Hendry was shocked and hurt, but he knew something like this would happen one day, so he actually countered it by making his own video. And that was a really, really good one. However, AJ Francis did not like that, but he was viciously attacked by Diener. And of course, AJ Francis thought he had everything under control to take out Joe Hendry, but unaware to him, here comes Rich Swann, who showed up to the rescue. So basically, AJ Francis just walked away. So that's going to be interesting to see. Now, during an interview, Macklin and, of course, the Rascals, as you know, they have their war with, of course, with Nick Mendes because, as you know, Macklin does not want him. He feels that he stepped over the line at his territory. But, of course, Trent Seven and Speedball, let's just say there's some unfinished business. But Trent Seven issued a challenge against him next week. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Now, our next match, we have Killer Kelly versus Danny Luna. Recently, as you know, MK Ultra were in a match against Jody Threat and Danny Luna. I thought this match was pretty interesting because it has nothing to do with them, but we do know that the MK Ultra are hell-bent to get their Knockouts tag titles back. But there was a moment where, of course, Masha tried to help Killer Kelly not to be pinned, but Jody Threat gets involved, but it was Danny Luna who made the pinfall. And that was a pretty good entry, but however, MK Ultra retaliated by attacking both of them until the case showed up to send a direct message. So we'll see what happens until then. Now, our main event, Kushida versus Moose. If you guys remember last week, Kushida fell victim of the system. As you know, Alex Shelley issued his rematch clause towards Moose, and of course, everybody is banned from ringside. So that kind of played out pretty well. But unfortunately, Kushida did not pick up the win because he got speared. And then, of course, the system came out to teach Kushida that the system works. But Shelley and Kevin Knight showed up for the helping hand. So this war between both sides is going to be very interesting. So I think that's it right now with Impact Wrestling. Let's move on with our final review, Ring of Honor. Okay, Ring of Honor. As you know, we just started the tournament for who is going to be our very first Ring of Honor Women's World Television Champion. This was something that's been discussed since it was unveiled, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hungry participants that want to win this belt. We know that Billy Starks is determined to win this belt, and of course, that is something we're definitely going to be seeing. But she hasn't begun her match for this week. That probably will happen next week or so. I think. Let me look my notes. Yeah, so that's next week. But right now, let's begin. Our first match is involved in that tournament. We have Queen Aminata versus J Rod. No, not related to this person. My name is actually with J period Rod. This one is J dash Rod. So now you know the difference. But yes, Queen Aminata, I think many people have often talked about, her being part of the AW Ring of Honor family is a good thing. J Rod, I was thinking this is going to be a very interesting match because I don't think she's part of the roster, but we know she's like one of those, I wouldn't say jobbers, more of the enhancements as they call it. But it did play out for Queen Aminata because she knocked her out with the headbutt and then pinned her. So we will see her in the next round. Don't remember who she'll be facing, but yes, we'll see. Next up, we have the Infantry versus Midnight Heat. If you guys are unfamiliarized, these guys have been around in the Pacific Northwest, appearing in Defy Wrestling and I think in Prestige. This match ended, of course, with the boot camp on Ricky Gibson, thanks to, of course, Bravo picking up the win. Now, we go to another first round of the ROH Women's World Television Tournament. We have Rachel Ellering versus Layla Hirsch. Now, I'm sure this is one of those matches. Oh boy, this is going to be good. But there was a moment where, of course, Layla Hirsch hurt Rachel Ellering. But however, Rachel decided that no matter what, this match has to end with the winner. So, but of course, when things were not going well, Rachel told Layla, just do it, finish it. Layla did not want to do it. But of course, the obvious story goes you have to have a winner. You can't let that happen. So, of course, Layla did exactly what Rachel asked, and she picked up the win. And of course, later on, we did see her in the back, disappointed how things didn't go exactly like she thought. But the winner is the winner. But Layla Hirsch felt bad for what happened to her. But, you know, I think for Rachel, she felt like it doesn't matter now. Things didn't go exactly like she would have hoped for because they would have wanted to give it their best all. But she did tell her that she will be there by her side every step of the way during the tournament. And I think Layla Hirsch felt happy to know that even though this is not how the results should have been, but Rachel said that she will be by her side. And I think that's a good closure to the show. And of course, a real true friendship. So I think that's going to be a good one to watch. Now, Nyla Rose, as you know, has been on a world tear, who's been determined to, in fact, to claim the territory of Athena, try to take her minions away. I'm talking about Billy Starks, Lexi Neer, and all that. But of course, Athena attacked her. Things got out of hand. So basically, this is becoming a Fuge Blend war. Like, who's going to be the one running the entire ROH women's locker room? And I think that's where the true battle begins. Now, our next match, we have the Outrunners versus Ice Williams and Joes Braxton. Now, I don't know exactly what you would think, but I'm going to skip ahead for this one because apparently the Outrunners did something called the running boot or something like that, but this is a similar move as the boot camp. So I don't know what was that all about. I'm not sure if they're trying to start a feud with the infantry, that sort of thing. We know the infantry are trying to pick up more wins in tag team titles, but there was an interview with them by Lexi Neer, but Lee Moriarty told them what they did, that they used their move in their match. So, of course, the infantry decided to confront them and told them that their move is different. So, I don't know what they would think of that, but if I was the Outrunners, I'd be more careful. Now, our next match, we have Brian Keith, the bounty hunter, taking on Slice Boogie. Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I actually met Slice Boogie before. He did show up in certain showcase shows with, the San Diego Pro Wrestling Academy, or when it was known as the Level Up Pro Wrestling Academy. Yeah, and also he's been appearing in other promotions. But I can tell you that this match ended with Brian Keith when he did some sort of move. I think this is one of those moments where like we can get behind Keith no matter what. So it's real fun. Next up, we have another tournament for the ROH Women's World Television Tournament. In the first round, we have Trish Adora versus um, Mercedes Martinez. Now, don't forget, Mercedes Martinez is a former ROH Women's World Champion. Um, you probably would think this is a very tough match. I know there's of course a mention that these two have met before previously, but in this case, it was Mercedes Martinez with the Border City sleeper that put her away to advance into the next round. Yep. Now, our next match, we have a trios match. We have Lance Archer and the Righteous, Vincent and Dutch, taking on John Cruz, JC Valentine, and James Blackheart. Now, of course, they don't want to be around these guys because they're crazy. But unfortunately, Valentine and Blackheart, they were taken out first with the Autumn Unshine, and then, of course, the Blackout. So everybody dies, as Lance Archer always says. Now, our next match, we have Kenny King, who made his return to TNA, to Ring of Honor. If you guys remember, he used to be in Ring of Honor before he went to Impact Wrestling. He faces against Dalton Castle, but I can tell you this match ended with, of course, Dalton Castle picking up the win. However, during a post-match, Johnny TV said that he'll give him his match unless he puts the boys on the line. And of course, it was like, what? So that's the most shocking. So he's saying that he's willing to take the boys from him if he put them on the line. So I'm sure that this is going to be a tough pill to swallow for Dalton Castle. I'm sure this is not what the boys want, nor Dalton Castle, but he needs to think this very, very clearly. But yes. So that's going to be interesting. Now, Athena, as you know, who's been unhinged with, of course, Nyla Rose, trying to, how do I say, take her kingdom from her. So she said that she'll put her women's title on the line, but she wants to face her. So that looks like it's going to happen. Now, our main event features, of course, as you know, we're not done with the first rounds of the ROH Women's World Television Title Tournament. We have right now Diamante versus Kara Hogan. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but it was pretty impressive. But it was Diamante who picked up the win. I don't know what you call this move. It looks more like a DDT, but more like a reverse DDT twist. I'm not sure, but it was effective. So she advances in the next round. Now, Nyla Rose said that she's glad to accept the match, but it's not going to be just any match. It's going to be a 2 out of 3 tables match. So that means you have to put your opponent through a table twice in order to win. This is going to be a tough task for Athena. So we'll see what happens next week. So I'm kind of curious what's going to happen. But nonetheless, that's how it is. So I think that's pretty much it for all the reviews. Let's move on with our news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news update. So this is what we have so far. Now, for updates with the promotions, we only have GCW. Now, as you know, next week we have the Touch the Sky event in Dallas. They announced the Bollywood Boys will be in action. They take on the Garbage Daddies, consistent of Cold Radrick and Alec Price. I think that's going to be a fantastic match to enjoy. Now, at the start of March, on March 1st, for the Project, we have Maki Death Kill. That's right, Maki Death Kill. They face off Los Macizos. That's a match I definitely don't want to miss because, Los Macizos are crazy, but so is Maki Ito and Nick Gage. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, as you know, for our last one, we have, of course, in Philly for the GCW / JCW versus The World on the 4th of April. They announced 4 more names will be participating. We have Yoshihiko, AJ Clearing, Ho Ho Loon, and of course Shota. I'm impressed by the names. You know what I mean? Shota, Yoshihiko, Ho Ho Loon. If you guys are unfamiliarized with these guys, you don't want to miss out. Shota is like the Japanese version of Eddie Guerrero, and not to mention he calls El Paso his second home. Now, for our developments, this one was something that caught my attention in the morning, where um, Yuka Sakazaki's name was removed from the roster. There was a lot of controversy of what was going on with that. I think many people thought that something happened. We know that Yuka Sakazaki is overseas bound, but we haven't heard anything just yet. We know she just recently graduated from Tokyo Pro Wrestling last year, but from beyond that, no. But later they did put out that her name is back in the roster, which is thank God. So people were going nuts over this. But yeah, we'll see. Now, of course, as you know, the whole thing with TNA and Scott D'Amore has gone into a different thing. I think there was something that was posted out about it. Let me pull it up real quick. Where is it? Okay, so this is what, of course, Fightful Select got. This is from the talent who were frustrated for the dismissal of Scott D'Amore. We are deeply saddened by the decision to remove Scott D'Amore from TNA/Impact family. It's our desire to have a dialogue with you and with your company as an effort to protect the present and the future TNA/for you, for Anthem, for fans, and for the professional wrestlers. So it seems that they're not happy with how things have gone with the dismissal of Scott D'Amore. I'm sure Anthem did not want this to happen, but I'm sure they should have thought this further. But as I said before, it was stupid and silly of them to fire him, all because he wants to put them to stand out more, and they just want to be like that. That's their own fault. Now, if you guys remember Vanessa Bourne, who was originally from the NXT brand, and then later goes by Daniela Kamela, it's just been revealed recently. We haven't seen her for a while, so it turns out that she's been working on a movie role as a cop. So pretty interesting, doing projects outside of wrestling. Good for her. I'm really happy. Now, as you know, recently, we in the wrestling world, especially those who are big fans of Yoshi Wrestling, we were saddened and heartbroken with the passing of Asahi, who died of an accident. And of course, not much of the details were given. Many wrestling fans and people who knew her were saddened by her passing. It was announced that they had a private funeral in her home prefecture in Gumna and to send her off. I'm sure many of us are saddened by her passing, but I'm sure we all have her memories that we're going to have. I remember Yoshi Pod, a local promotion, a local podcast from here, from my hometown, often talked about her, how she could have been the top star of Ice Ribbon, but she wasn't like determined to prove that much, just to put out a good match. And I have to say he's right. I mean, people loved her for what she did, but she will be missed, but not forgotten. So rest in peace, Asahi. Man, that got me emotional. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it with everything else. So let's just call it a day. Okay, so I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, not only will be doing AEW Rampage and NXT Level Up, we do have the latest Oz Academy show, and I forgot the name of it. All I Want, I believe that's what it's called. This is just recently, and of course the much recent Pro Wrestling Noah. But if there's any changes coming up, we'll just see how that rolls. I'm looking forward to do all of that for all of you. So I'm really excited for the next episode. So until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye. And have a nice day. Bang.